Good afternoon. I'm Bill Anderson, coming live from the Costa del Sol with my regular guest, Marcel Salazar, physical therapist. How are you, Marcel?
I'm really, really well. Thank you very much. How are you, sir?
I'm well. Actually, I've got some aches and pains, Marcel.
No doubt. I can believe it. I can believe it, sir.
Well, we've got a good question for everyone. I've been dying to say this. The question that we've got is, have you got a pain in the arse? And we're going to be talking about that. But yeah, we had some rain a few weeks ago, some kind of heavy rain here. And unfortunately, I had two walls fell down. We've got a sort of terraced garden, and two walls fell down. So over the last few days, I've been sort of hacking apart big sort of three-section breeze blocks and shifting about, and so my body aches.
No doubt. That's very manly activity, Bill.
Oh, it is
Really
indeed,
impressive.
yes. Yeah, no toxic
Very manly.
masculinity here.
No, absolutely not. No, I'm sure your lovely lady is enjoying every moment of you hacking away at those breeze blocks.
Yeah, and I think I'm developing a two-pack.
Good for you. Good for you. Most people have a one pack. I get it. It's fine. It's the one bulge in
One
belly.
big
Yeah. Good
bulge,
for
yeah.
you. Well done. Good. The weather is conducive for some sweaty workout tours. So good for
Yeah,
you. But just take care of your back, obviously,
well,
and try to stretch.
that's the bit that I have to really be careful with because I've had a slip disc a couple of times. So
Ah,
I'm very, very careful when I'm lifting these things and
yes.
try to be sensible. Yeah.
Good, good. So if you've got a history of slip disc, then obviously it does make sense for you to not use too much rotation. So, like swinging an axe at a tree,
Right.
that's a fantastic exercise unless you have a slip disc.
Right.
So I don't think you're going to be swinging at any trees, but you might be swinging at a breeze block to try and break it up or whatever. So
Yeah.
just be wary of that and try and gently stretch down afterwards as well.
Right. Okay. Marcel, pains in the
Yes.
arse.
Pains in the arse. Exactly. I thought that was a fairly catchy title because amazingly, I've been seeing a surprising number of people at the moment with pain either in the arse or down the leg or all the way down to the toes.
Right. Okay.
And there is a very common cause for that. And the most common one that most people know of is sciatica. Everyone's
Right.
heard of that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you boys have
That's
definitely heard of that, I'm
the,
sure.
the the
And it's a
sciatic
very
nerve.
common,
That yeah.
yeah, it's a very common self-diagnosed condition, which is half correct and half incorrect.
Right.
Because the reason you have pain is probably because the sciatic nerve is being impinged, which means the space that it has to travel from your spine down your body, down your leg, is being um, probably because it's related to a different muscular opposed to originating from somewhere in your spine, which is where the sciatic nerve originates from.
Right.
So what I want to do is describe the difference,
Oh, we're coming and going a little bit, Marcel.
whether they have one condition known as sciatica or another condition known as piriformis syndrome.
Right. And there is a difference here, Marcel, between sciatica and piriformis syndrome.
There is. There
Yeah.
is indeed. Yeah, exactly. So to distinguish between the two, if you're suffering from back pain and that back pain radiates into your buttock or down your leg or even right down to your little toe, then that is more commonly sciatica.
Right.
And what sciatica is an irritation of the nerve root, which means the origin of the sciatic nerve in the base of your spine, because of, for example, herniation, which is where you get a bulge of the disc in between each of your vertebral blocks, or it can be a bony spur, which is where you get a buildup of bone around where the nerve protrudes from the spine,
Right.
or it can be other mechanical issues relating to that, which basically results in compression of the nerve root, which is at the base of your spine.
Right.
And that would be classic sciatica. That's more of a serious issue that takes a little bit longer to resolve, but is totally resolvable as well. But the one that I'm seeing much more commonly, because it's a musculoskeletal problem, is the piriformis syndrome.
Right. Now, Marcel, I asked you if they're different. You said they are. And
Yes.
the reason I'm asking that is, just doing a little bit of research on these things, people seem to be using piriformis syndrome and sciatica as being synonyms almost.
So the reason why they're similar is because the sciatic nerve, is the pain signaler. So in both cases, it's the sciatic nerve that is causing pain, as in that is where the origin is coming from. But the origin of the issue is either from the piriformis, which is deep inside the glutes or
Right.
underneath your bottom, basically, the big muscle of your bottom. It's either coming from there and then radiating down via the sciatic nerve, or if you have a more serious problem, it's coming from your lower back. So you're right in that it's the sciatic nerve is the main contingent of the causes of pain, but they're two very separate injuries, and that's important to distinguish.
Right. And does that mean that the treatment for them is different then?
Yes, it is. There are some similarities, but predominantly it's different because your focal point with relation to sciatica will be the lower back, and the focal point in relation to your piriformis will be your bottom.
Right, yeah. It's strange that you say that you've had a lot of people coming in with this recently, because I've spoken to several people in the street who are describing, I can't diagnose what the root cause of their pain is, but I've spoken to a number of people in the street recently who are saying that it sounds like sciatica, wherever
Yeah.
it's starting, I don't know, but they're describing the
Yeah.
pain from the buttocks down the legs. And
There we go.
it's just one of these things, people are sort of hobbling a little bit, and I said, "You okay?" "Oh, I've
Yeah.
got this
Yeah.
pain down the back of my leg and around my buttock,"
Yeah.
and yeah,
Perfect. I mean, that is exactly right. And that tends to be piriformis syndrome over sciatica, because sciatica, when it's serious, it's usually quite a bit more debilitating, and it starts in the lower back. So it
right,
goes all the way up above your buttock and in the lower back, and then it can radiate down. But if it's
right,
starting in your buttock and hip and then radiating down, the chances are, and they're still mobile, they're moving about, they're walking quite a lot, they find that they'll walk quite a long distance, and then later that evening they might feel that they've got that problem, and then it sticks around and they've got it all the time. That tends to be piriformis syndrome.
right.
It
Okay,
is very important to get them diagnosed, though, the differences.
yeah, and would that diagnosis be done by someone like you, or does it need some
Correct.
more serious sort of investigation, Marcel?
No, that absolutely can be assessed by somebody like myself, or an osteopath, or a qualified chiropractor or osteopath, myself included. We're the type of people that would more specifically, and in actual fact, we tend to be better at it than doctors. Sometimes
Okay,
doctors get it, but doctors are a little bit more general, and I've had patients, for example, who have been told they have sciatica. They've been given medication because, of course, that's pretty much the only thing the doctor knows how to do. But it still lingers and it continues, and it doesn't get any better
yeah,
because that's not dealing with the problem. That's just masking it in a lazy sort of way.
right.
And then they come to me, and then I find the problem, and then we get rid of it for the long
Right.
term. So there is a difference. And medications, 50 to more than 80% of the time, tend not to work, unfortunately.
What would typically be the kind of medication prescribed? Would it be a simple painkiller or
Yeah.
anti-inflammatory?
So the scary thing here is that I've had people being prescribed everything from paracetamol all the way up to full-on antidepressants and/or muscle relaxants.
Right, right,
So, some doctors, when they get desperate, if the client goes back and they're like, and the patient goes back and they're like, "I still got pain," the doctor's only option, instead of suggesting, "Well, how about you go and see a specialist, somebody who might be able to help you," because that's what they do, "I'm going to give you stronger drugs." So what
Right.
they then do is they give them stronger medication, which might take the edge off. It might help it for a little bit. Then it might come back. So, because the toolkit is very limited, then obviously the only option is to get stronger. And I've had clients who have had very strong medications, and the goal is wean them off them in connection with their doctor, informing them fully, saying they're coming to get professional help, and it works. It
Yeah.
has worked.
Yeah, I think that the thing that you mentioned here is quite important, Marcel, that particularly primary care doctors, they're jack of all trades, aren't they?
That's
And
right.
that is not, I don't mean to speak badly of primary care doctors,
Mm,
but, they're dealing with everything from a bad case of pimples to
absolutely.
coronary heart disease and everything in
Absolutely.
between.
Yeah.
And it's probably not surprising. Well, one, they've got an average of 5 minutes per patient.
Yep.
And someone says, I've got a pain down here and it's going right down the back of my leg. Well, I could say, it's sciatica.
Exactly. 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 And that's why it's so common, because it's very easy to make that quick diagnosis and prescription, and then they're out.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's exactly what the reason is. And of course, even at the same time, the doctor who may make the correct prescription or diagnosis and their prescription of treatment, they don't have the toolkit, as in training, to provide the relief, and
Yeah.
they don't have the time.
Yeah.
So when you combine those two things together, you're gonna walk straight into a bit of a problem there. So it just makes sense that they don't have the time, they don't have the specific training for that type of thing, because they do have to know an awful lot about general stuff. So they know a
Yes.
little bit about lots of different things.
Yeah.
So that's just the nature of that job. And then of course we all know, if you want to get surgery, you go to a specialist in knee surgery, or you go to a specialist in hip surgery, or you go to a brain specialist. You won't go to somebody who doesn't specialize in that certain joint. And it's the
Right.
same. It's the same in relation to musculoskeletal problems
Yeah.
that I see. If you've got an MSK or musculoskeletal problem, that's where somebody like me can make a difference. So
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say, Marcel, that we do have a very good public health system here in Spain.
I think we do. I agree.
But if you go to your GP and you've got this problem and it needs to be referred on,
Yep.
it can take 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, because we're suffering from the waiting lists here that I think is universal throughout most of
Absolutely.
Europe within public health
Absolutely.
systems. And
Yep.
if you've got a severe pain that's debilitating, even if you don't have a sort of very active job, even just sitting at a desk with a constant nagging pain down the back of your leg
Mhm.
is not good for getting a good job done, is it?
No, it's
Uh,
it's very distracting. I mean, this is where, if we go into chronic pain, and again, I see patients with a lot of chronic pain. Chronic pain means you've been suffering from pain for more than 4 weeks, let's say.
right.
Some people will endure chronic pain for up to 3 months, and that is extremely fatiguing. And one of the things that I see very often, if somebody presents to me with um, chronic pain, that means they've had pain for a long period of time. When they have treatment, sometimes the pain level changes, but it almost slightly increases, and they almost feel exhausted from it,
Right.
because what's happening is I'm starting to release and create change in their body. In the same capacity, if somebody's had a problem for maybe, I don't know, a week or so, their sensitivity, their acute pain is high. And then when I finish the treatment, they're often feeling exhausted. They come up from the couch from having done the treatment, and they're like, oh my God, I feel really tired, a little bit dizzy, and so on. And that's because, again, the nervous system is so exhausted from being in constant pain that when I
Right.
start to create these changes in the tissue and the nervous system, all becomes very stimulated, and it releases and becomes very tiring. And so people tend to sleep really, really well after treatment as well. And that's so important, because sleep is crucial. Pain
Yeah.
will interrupt sleep. Constant distraction will interrupt or keep people awake or stop them from getting to sleep. And that's a huge problem.
Yeah.
So that in itself is very, very important. If we hark back to our show from last month, and we know how important sleep is, right?
Sure.
So if you're not getting consistent sleep, that then leads into other health problems.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So, is there any particular reason why you think you've been getting a sort of increase in people with these kind of problems? Is it to do with the change of seasons and people doing different things, or
Yes.
the difference in temperatures, being outdoors and indoors? I mean, I'm still wrapped
Exactly.
up here indoors, and then you
Yeah.
go outside and it's really hot. Are there factors that you think have contributed to this, Marcel?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. You've hit the nail on the head with that. Basically, it is absolutely to do with activity levels. So there's nothing wrong with the change of weather, meaning you go out and walk more. 100% going to always recommend that you do that. But sometimes, if you haven't, let's say you've been fairly sedentary for the winter period, it's been raining, you've been indoors, you've been rested for longer periods of time, your general level of fitness, with the demographic that I'm seeing, is going to have reduced.
Right.
So, of course, what our minds do is we go, as soon as the sun comes out, we step out and we go and do the same level of activity that we may have done 6 months before or
Right.
so on when we were a little bit fitter. And so suddenly, although we can manage it and there's no problem, suddenly we start to feel a little bit achy and sore and it sort of builds up. But we think that's okay, that's fine, that's just me getting back into it. But it just builds and builds and builds. And of course, the older we become, as we've discussed many times before, the body's ability to recover is not as good.
Right.
So if we don't get the proper recovery, it just builds and builds and builds and builds. And so, I'm like, I've seen very, very recently, literally my two of my patients this morning were both suffering from symptoms of inflamed piriformis. And so
Right.
that was giving them problems.
Right. So what is it that causes this inflammation then? Is it just bad exercise, too much exercise, or is there some other cause? Why does this muscle sort of just decide one day I'm going to be
Yeah,
inflamed?
that's a good question. That's a really good question. It's a relatively small muscle, but it's very, very important, and it controls movement of your feet. So because of its size, it's a small muscle, which means it's never going to be super powerful. The major muscle is the one of the buttocks, which is the gluteus maximus, which is your bum, basically.
Right.
And this muscle that we're talking about is beneath that, and it controls the rotation, the external rotation of your feet. And so if you're walking a little bit differently because of your fitness level, if you're walking a bit differently because of if you have pain in your knee, then that will affect the way you're walking. Even on a subconscious level, you may not know.
Right.
If you have an imbalance from left to right because of your fitness levels or because of a possible previous injury, then that will play an impact. But this isn't reserved just for people over a certain age. This can happen to anybody. If you're an athlete, it can happen if you've changed your training regime, if you're training on new surfaces, if you're training in hills. All of these things, because the hips are so fundamental for movement, then it is absolutely feasible that it can happen to anybody. So it can be a change of footwear, it can be a change of walking or exercise environment. All those types of things can play a factor. And unless you know how to deal with it, and if you're not stretching sufficiently, the chances of it happening are a little bit higher. Stretching plays a big part in helping it.
Right, and we've talked about this quite a lot in the past, Marcel, and the different types of stretching. But I guess really, if people are going out for, I don't know, we've got this beautiful boardwalk for kilometres along the beach side, away from all the roads and everything.
Yeah.
Just doing the right kind of stretching before and the right kind of stretching after the walk can really help to prevent these things, can't they?
Exactly. That's exactly right. The boardwalk is a flat surface. It's a good, even surface. It's great. It's absolutely ideal. And if you want to get to beginning to exercise or getting back to walking, then absolutely do it. But in the same vein, if you want to improve recovery, if you want to facilitate your ability to continue to do that again the next day or the day after, it makes sense for you to stretch, because stretching is your body's form of recovery.
Right.
Now, athletes do it because they're putting their bodies under enormous stress.
Mm.
But as we get older, we tend to think, unless we know, we tend to think, well, this is low stress activity, so I'll be fine. Even a walk for 30 minutes should be fine. And in most cases, it should be fine. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't stretch when you've finished, because you're still using your muscles. And if you do stretch, you're assisting your body's ability to recover from the stress that you've provided, which is
Right.
relative to your age and fitness level and so on. So if you stretch, it only benefits you. Stretching very rarely does any more damage, should we say.
Right. So just, if we're talking about just, not playing sports, just general levels of activity, and let's say it's going for a walk of 3, 4, 5 kilometers. What would help to protect the piriformis in terms of stretching after a walk like that?
Yeah. So I've actually created a video on my YouTube channel. We've spoken about that before, where people can obviously view that for themselves if they want to see specifically for certain stretches. But I'm also produced one for piriformis, both stretching and exercises that will make it stronger for prevention, and stretching if you want to. So one of the stretches that's really, really useful, some of you who do yoga may have heard of the pigeon pose. And to describe that, it basically means you're on all fours, hands on your knees, and you place one knee in front of your chest in the middle of your body. Okay, so you're on your hands and knees and your knee comes up underneath your chest. And then with your opposite leg, you extend it back behind you, straightening your leg, and you lower your body down. When you do that, you're going to be literally stretching the piriformis and gluteal muscles very, very effectively. Now, if your knees don't let you do that, you can't do it. If your hips don't let you do that, you can't do it. So there are other variations. But that's a great stretch for it. So it's called the pigeon pose. If you literally type it into any search image, it will show you very quickly what that is. So that's a really good way.
Right.
And as always, as I was always recommending, we've said in the past, you do this when your body is warm. So the best time to do that is at the end of your walk, not necessarily at the beginning.
Okay.
Okay. So that, I can't emphasize that enough, because if you do it at the beginning and your muscles aren't ready, that's when stretching can be problematic.
Right.
If you do it at the end and your muscles have been used and you've been walking for 15, 20, 30, an hour, your muscles will absolutely be ready for stretching, because there's been lots of circulation, lots of movement, and so on and so forth. They're well lubricated and therefore ready to be stretched.
Right.
Got an idea for that.
Here we go.
What if you did it when you get out of the bath on a tiled floor, when you've had a red hot bath, and it'll be like it's a knockout? Because if you're trying to get your knee up and on a wet tiled floor.
Now, if we're talking about a very large bathroom, I'm assuming here, Dave, that you've got a very large marble floored.
Huge, this thing I've got.
Huge bathroom. Right. Okay, good. Well, aside from it looking rather extreme for anyone who may be living with you and walking into the room whilst you're there, I do worry for their safety. But not recommended that you do it fresh out the bath. And I'll tell you why. The bath is a little bit deceptive as a way of warming up, because actually, although it's not the worst case scenario, if you want to do it after a bath, that's absolutely fine. But the bath will actually have drawn blood to the surface of the skin. So rather than you being hot internally, shall we say, because your muscles have been used, you're more hot superficially because your body is trying to dispel the heat that you've surrounded it in. So that's why your skin goes wet and all that kind of stuff.
We won't be doing that then.
Yeah, but that's a different kind of thing. If you're dipping yourself into boiling water, aside from peeling your own skin off, it's not necessarily going to be an effective way of warming up the muscles of your body in preparation for stretching.
Right.
Sorry, Dave.
See, I thought Bill and Vicky would have a go at that when they got out of the bath. I thought that'd be great if you could do it together, if you could watch each other, just having a go, see if you could get, just right, love, pull your knee up to your, oh dear.
Dave is living out his fantasies here live on radio.
Absolutely. The visuals are there. We've all got it in our mind now.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah, there'd be ambulances. God, I hope they're not on strike down there where you are. If you having a go at your
Well, I have to be honest here and say I haven't actually had a bath in 20 years.
did,
wow.
you don't admit to that. My
That
God,
makes sense. That does make a lot of sense now. I get it.
yeah, flies around you already in that
Yeah,
studio.
it's the aura. It's the colourful aura you have there, Bill. I knew it.
Well, you see, the thing is, we live in the countryside here, and for the first 10 years I lived here, we had a well for our water supply, which was a bit iffy. So you just got used to taking showers rather than having baths.
And you couldn't dip your feet in the well to wash your feet because it was that deep.
It was 120 meters deep, the well, yeah. So,
Mind you, that's cold bathing. That's very good for you, you know. Cold
Yeah,
bathing. Getting back to
yeah,
that.
it might be easy to get in, but I don't know how easy it would be to get back out the 120 meters up.
I've got an idea for you. Me and Marcel, if I come down there, we'll tie you to the bucket on the well. We'll lower you down. We'll winch you down. Drop you in for a good 2 minutes.
And leave me.
Pick you back up again and just see.
Yeah.
Right.
Depending on the level of screaming, we'll pull you back up again.
Right. I think this is a good point to take a short break. So we're going to listen to Mantronics, Gotta Have Your Love. And welcome back. I'm Bill Anderson, coming live here from the Costa del Sol with Marcel Salazar. Welcome back, Marcel.
Thank you so much.
And I'm going to be a bit more correct this time and say that we're talking about piriformis syndrome and sciatica, better known as a pain in the arse, yes?
Roughly speaking, yes, certainly can be a pain in the ass, which is very unfortunate, but mostly pain in the leg, pain in the foot, pain in the back. Yes, it is a pain in the ass generally.
That's
Right.
the Latin description, isn't it?
Yeah, right.
Listen, I always put the radio show up on my personal Facebook page, and you know what the heading was, got a pain in the arse. And I had several people said the wife says that she's got one, and his name is Joe.
Yeah.
So,
I kind of thought I thought of realized that the title might trigger a few people. So
yeah,
that's
it
good.
did. It did. So, Marcel, you know, you've talked us through, you know, the similarities and the differences in terms of the origin of this sciatic pain.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of, well, we'll talk about two things. One is the treatment you would give, and the other is what people can do, let's just say, at home, and if they would be doing the same thing or different things for these two different sources of pain.
Yes. So there would be a difference because the piriformis syndrome is a musculoskeletal issue.
Right.
They can do stretches that would very specifically target that area relatively quickly. So once you know what to do, you can usually resolve that faster by getting therapy, moderately fast if the stretching, and if you follow a guided program such as my YouTube video, probably a little slower than that, maybe with some medication, but maybe not. But with sciatica, you would want to find out what is causing that problem.
Right.
Because as I mentioned, if it's a herniation, you're going to want to know about that. If it's a bony spur, you're going to want to know, because treatment, whilst it is effective, it might not, it will take longer. First of all, sciatic treatments usually take longer to heal from because it's a more of a mechanical problem.
Right.
So it is resolvable, but it takes longer. If you have piriformis syndrome, when properly treated, it can be done within 3 to 5 sessions normally, depending on the severity of it, which is very quick. With sciatica, it can take a little bit longer because that is a change in the construction of your spine in some way, and that takes a little bit longer to adjust for.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, if you may not know you've got it, but if you've got a herniated disc or something like that, I guess there are things that you should really be avoiding doing.
Yeah, well, that's a very valid point. Exactly. There are certain things that you want to be, that could be a trigger or that you would want to avoid altogether. And the tricky part in this part of the world as well is that golf can be often very problematic if you have a hernia. Now,
Ah,
that doesn't mean you can't play golf. It just means you need to be aware and strengthen certain parts of your body in order to protect the hernia from getting worse and so on. Because rotation, whilst it's excellent for your spine, it's a very important function. When you add forced rotation, even with additional weight, such as a club, then that puts quite a lot of stress through your back, which classically, if you're a healthy person, is not a problem. But if you
right.
have vulnerability, weakness, an underlying problem that you may not even know about, then the risks are obviously much, much higher and the potential for serious back pain.
Yeah.
I can give you a tip for that if you're a golfer.
Right. Go on.
Here we go. Go on.
This is serious. I'm not fooling about now, right? When you address the ball, if you imagine when you've got the club in your hand, if you imagine someone's got the finger like that, like a hook, and gone into the belt on your trousers,
Right.
the loop on the where your belt goes through
Yeah.
at the back,
Yeah.
set your back. Literally, when you're addressing the ball, hitch your hips up like that. So when you swing, there's no movement in the back causing stress on it. That's what this. I've done this for years with back issues with other people, and I was told it years ago, and I've used it, and I've never ever had a problem with my back with golf. And all it is literally imagine that someone's got hold of your belt loop.
Are we talking about the belt loop in the middle at the back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you
Okay.
down the center of your spine, and you literally, with that, I can't do it. I can't. All you're doing is literally
Lifting.
locking your hips,
Yeah.
just lifting your hips
Do you
slightly.
want me to- I can tell you the mechanism of what you're doing there.
Yeah.
So the mechanism of that, the lumbar spine likes to be slightly curved. And if you're on video, you can actually see what I'm doing here. But your lumbar spine wants to maintain what's called lordosis in 80% of people. Lordosis is a very slight curve. We've all seen it on other people. And when you hitch the belt loop, as you say, you're actually putting your lower back into a slightly more lordotic position, which is a very stable and strong position for most people. If you can maintain that position whilst you go through the swing rotation, then in theory, you're absolutely right that should provide you with a core stability and the pelvic positioning to be able to rotate correctly. But the caveat to that can be where the hernia is on the person, and obviously if they are balanced muscularly as well. But it's certainly not a bad idea. And any listeners, you should certainly try it if you find that you're back, because you shouldn't be causing more of a problem by doing that. So that's a good idea for people to try.
Yeah.
And let's face it, there's a lot of golf goes on down here, Marcel.
A lot of golf.
In Mijas alone, I think we have 12 golf courses.
Yeah, I'm surrounded by them. I can look at 2 or 3 just from my office.
Yeah, and I have to say that.
Sorry, mate. Go on.
No. I have to say that some of the golfers, I mean, I say good on them, but some of them look like the most unhealthy people walking about.
Plus, the problem is, you look at them and you look at the posture and you think, what are you thinking? Because they're doing more damage. You'll come off a course and they'll be in agony days after, and you think, what are you thinking? Because they're not looking after themselves, and they've got the way that they're hitting the ball and that they're playing the game is causing major problems on the back.
Yeah.
And they're not seeing it or feeling it straight away. It's not till, like Marcel said, period of time after, they're thinking, I can't get up out of the chair or whatever.
That's it. That is an indication that you have an underlying either muscular imbalance or worse, something more going on your spine. If you feel it after the fact, I mean, if you feel it at the time, it's fairly logical, right? But if you feel it after the fact as well, it's something that shouldn't be ignored. And it's very, very common that people ignore it, particularly men, of course. But it's very, very common. And golf is one of those interesting sports where it's usually underestimated in terms of the stress that it puts on your body when you are hitting a ball. But everything else around golf is pretty easy, like in terms of walking from one place to the next or taking a buggy, etc. So you've got a very small time frame of quite stressful activity, and then quite a large amount of time frame where you're not doing an awful lot, maybe just walking or waiting for teeing off or having a drink, etc. So there's these short bouts of extreme movement that can be quite stressful for the body, and if you're not ready for it, then you're just going to injure yourself.
Yeah. So Marcel, we've kind of put the warning on the whole sciatica thing, that you need to really find out what the root of that is before you start doing more damage. If it's very clear to people that the pain is not coming from their back, it's coming from the buttock down the way.
Exactly.
Well, first of all, what would you be doing? Is it deep tissue massage, or what would you be doing? Yeah.
So most of my clients who have received treatment from me will probably tell you that it's not the most pleasant experience at the time. They just indicated exactly what I would do there. But yes, without getting too graphic with it, it has to be quite a deep tissue release technique.
Yeah.
Not quite like that, Dave. Not quite like that. It can remain external, yes, but there is a little bit of elbow work sometimes as well.
Yeah.
So,
There's going to be a lot of... There's going to be that going on, surely.
The pitch can go up pretty high. Some screaming does happen every now and then, but it just means it's working. That's all that means.
Yeah, but because Vicky did do several courses on therapeutic massage and one on sports massage, and she made the comment, because she's about half your size, Marcel, and probably about half your weight as well, and she was taught for this kind of problem, it was the elbow in there. And she said it hurts.
Yes, exactly. And even if you are a fairly slight person, if you find the right spot on an injured person, it doesn't feel that either way.
Yeah.
So the pressure I put on my clients won't be anywhere close to my body weight.
No,
it doesn't
sure.
require that. And then put 20%, 30% pressure, and they definitely feel it. So it's not in the sense that I'm trying to really hurt them. It's more that I'm trying to get a therapeutic result. But, that can be a bit confusing for the client when they're like, oh my God, he's really putting some pressure there.
Yeah.
So, it is a little uncomfortable, but it is very effective. And my success, once you diagnose it, it works really well.
Yeah. So you're not really taking some kind of sadistic pleasure from inflicting pain on people in this?
It has been asked. It has been asked whether I am getting sadistic. Do you know what I mean? People are confused sometimes. And their questions are asked like, do I have to pay you for this afterwards? And the truth of it is yes, because it works and it's very good. I'm not deriving any pleasure from it. Believe me, it may seem that way, but really I'm not. And I just know that it works. So that's just the way it is, I'm afraid. Exactly. That's the reality, and it's a little uncomfortable, but it generally results in a lot of pain relief immediately afterwards. And in the long term, if a person needs multiple treatments, it just reduces more and more and more and more. And we had I literally said this morning, a client has come from Belgium to be here for 2 weeks, and I saw her consistently over the time frame, and she's gone from not being able to walk comfortably for 5 minutes to now walking on the beachfront with an exercise program for strength and stretching, and is feeling a world better. So now her biggest concern is not for it, and maybe making sure that she continues to strengthen her piriformis as she goes back home.
And she can yodel. Yeah, she can yodel for Belgium now, can't she?
Big time. I'm not sure how popular yodeling is, but yeah, it's that's right. She was definitely doing that at the beginning.
But taking up in Belgium big time, probably.
So Marcel, just I like the idea of prevention. I know prevention's not good for you because you work in cures, But
That's terrible.
I know.
I'm very much of the mindset of prevention as well. I always try and give tools for prevention because it makes a big difference. It's bad for business, but it's really good for my patients.
Yeah. So, I mean, for these two things, I mean, first of all, the more complex of the two, the sciatica. You know, what should people be doing generally to try to protect themselves from sciatica?
Good question. For both of these conditions, you want to try to maintain mobility in your lower back and your hips.
Right, okay.
So that means whenever the opportunity arises for you to warm up that part of your body, and that's a lot because you're always using them when you walk, if you can, remember to stretch your lower back, your glutes, and your inner thighs. It will prevent the likelihood of this becoming an issue.
Right.
But as you quite rightly highlighted already by saying prevention is best, most people only deal with an issue when it becomes an issue.
Absolutely.
Rather than preemptively thinking, right, well, if I'm walking for 30 minutes or more, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to help my body to recover by stretching a little bit when I get home.
Right.
And that really is the best thing to do. And again, just to re-highlight when the best time is to stretch, you want to do it as soon as possible after activity. So what that means is if you're driving to the beach, but you live 15 minutes away, when you get back to your car, that's the best time to stretch.
Right, okay.
It's not the best time to stretch after you've driven home for 15 minutes and your body's then cooled down.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if you can do it at the beach, and the beach is a great place to stretch. So if you've got a towel with you, you've got a towel in the car, get it out, go down to the beach, do a little bit of stretching, and then get in your car. And you'll find that not only are you much more relaxed, but also your body will feel much looser. And the next day, you probably won't even feel that tired or sore. You'll just feel ready to do it again. And that makes all the difference.
Sure. And we will on the podcast, Marcel. I'll include your video on piriformis and sciatica and the exercises that you're recommending for these things.
Very good, thank you.
We won't have the music on it. The music's a bit too lively for me.
Well, I can put candle music on. You know what you're doing younger and all that. We can have that on the go if you want.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more of an elevator music man, you know.
Well, whatever rocks your boat.
Whatever rocks your boat. And I tend to have quite relaxing music here, Bill. So if you want to come in and let me release your piriformis for you.
Steady.
That is a chat up. That's a chat up line I haven't heard before, Marcel.
I tell you, the fear in your eyes made it worth it.
Oh, that's something 9 o'clock. That'll be releasing soon. Be released after prison if you're doing that.
Wow.
So is that what you used to say to the ladies in the bar? Can I release your piriformis muscle for you?
100%. It worked every time. Still works. Still works with the wife. Would you like me to release your piriformis? She says, you come near me and I'm going to... So, yeah, unfortunately, no. That's not the best chat-up line. But I know it will work for you. So whenever you're ready, I'm ready.
Yeah. I'll talk to Vicky later about that one.
Okay. No problem.
Tell ladies you like candle music. Is he a priest?
So, Marcel, I know time is running on. Any final advice you want to give on this specifically, and then I'll get you just to tell us again how people can check up on what you're doing and how they can get in touch with you.
Absolutely. So to reiterate exactly what we've covered already in relation to prevention, if you feel pain in your lower back that lasts consistently for more than 48 hours, don't ignore it.
Right.
If you have pain radiating down your buttock, into your leg, behind your knee, beside your knee, by your big toe, and it lasts for more than maybe 4 or 5 days, but it'll probably be on and off, don't ignore it. Get it checked, because the chances are it might be something that will linger and stay longer and will just become problematic for you.
Right.
It's much quicker to get it solved in a shorter period of time. The longer you have the injury, the longer the treatment takes takes to take effect.
Right.
So
Okay.
it just makes sense for you to get it dealt with sooner rather than later. So don't ignore that pain.
Yeah.
Back pain that is radiating across your back and shooting down your leg, it could potentially be sciatica that is quite serious, and you definitely want to either escalate it by seeing somebody like myself or go to your doctor, but with the emphasis of getting a referral for an MRI. And the MRI is really the very best way. Doctors often recommend x-rays, but MRIs really are the very best way to get a clear diagnosis of what's happening in your spine specifically, which could be any number of things.
Yeah.
So if you want to come to me to find that out, all you need to do is go to strongforlife.me online or strongforlife.es. Both of those links work. You can book in directly via my website with my online diary, or you can go to facebook.com/strongforlife.me or instagram.com/strongforlife.me. So, or YouTube, all of that's on there. Lots of resources on YouTube, and lots of guides as well to preventative actions on my social media as well.
And your YouTube channel is Strong for Life Physical Therapy, yeah?
It is, correct.
Yeah, and you've been doing a lot of videos, and Austra as well has been doing a lot of videos on actually a lot on sort of stretching and yeah.
I mean, that's the only reason people will watch it is because my beautiful wife is on there, so I get that. And
yeah, well, it's why I'd rather watch Austra's videos than yours, Marcel. You know,
100%,
yeah,
100%. I get it, and she also has Instagram and Facebook that I would highly recommend. And they are excellent viewing.
Yes.
So by all means, subscribe and comment, and she'll very much appreciate that.
Yeah. Marcel, can I thank you once again for joining us? I really enjoy our conversations at the end of each month. Very informative, very interesting. Thanks to everyone who's been listening in today. I hope you have a very good weekend. We're going to have a sunny one, I think, Marcel.
I think we are. I'm looking forward to this weekend, actually. Thank you so much for having me on the show, of course, as always, and I'll hopefully see you in a month.
Yep, perfect. We'll hold you to that.
Brilliant.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Thanks, great weekend. See you next week. Well, hear you next week.
See you next week.
Love you.